Good afternoon. My name is Captain Kenneth Puckett. I'm a retired Panama Canal pilot, and I'm on board the Aurora to assist you to get through the Panama Canal. I'll be giving some lectures on it now, and after we clear the canal. We should be there tomorrow morning about 5 o'clock. We'll pick up the pilot and proceed in the southeasterly direction as we proceed through the canal. Should take about 8 hours to get through. 3 pilots will come aboard to assist us, along with 26 other Panamanian workers that will handle our cables and our lines as we get through the canal. Should be windy. We'll only be 600 miles above the equator, so I encourage everyone to wear some suntan lotion and watch yourself up on deck. Move around a bit, give everyone an opportunity to see what the canal consists of and how it works, and just have a good day. Well, it's the eighth wonder of the engineering world, really. It's been referred to by the American Society of Engineers as being one of the 8th most engineering accomplishments that has ever been constructed. And it's 100 years old and still operating today. I've been through the canal as a control pilot working on the Panama Canal 1,473 times. The locks are each chamber is 1,000 feet long and 110 feet wide and 74 feet deep. The water is brought in from the lake through a series of culverts. It floods the lock, and then through gravity the ships are lowered and raised to 85 feet above sea level, where you proceed across the lake 19 miles into the famous Gaillard Cut, which is a ditch dug through the Continental Divide, and then down to the other side, locked back down into the Pacific Ocean. Should take about 8 hours to get across the canal tomorrow. Well, just a little bit of the history and the magnitude of the construction and the accomplishments were made 100 years ago when we didn't have the technology we had today. The canal was built with slide rules and experimentation. There's 16 different types of cement composites were developed before they could come up with the right composition of concrete and sand and rock to build these walls that we'll be going between. And they've held up for over 100 years now. So we want to look at that. We want to look at the electric locomotives. They're specially designed to hold the ships in the middle. These locomotives won't be used in the new canal, the new structure. If we look off to the left side of the canal as we approach, you'll see the new locks that are being built. Mega locks that will be taking large container ships and the supersized cruise ships through. And on the right, you'll see a small little canal built by the French, less than 100 feet wide. So a little bit of history there. Dates back to 1870 to the current day. The mules are all electric. They weigh 35 to 45 tons of steel. They can hold 40,000 pounds of holding power with their cables. They're electric hydraulic. They run off of a hot shoe, all electricity. And they're the other engine besides water that drives the canal. Each locomotive operator is trained for a period of 6 months to learn how to properly handle the locomotives and to keep the ship in the middle of the canal, the locks. Once you go through it, you'll get the idea. Then we'll go across the lake. It'll be a good time to go get lunch, maybe take a nap, because there's very little wildlife in the middle of the lake. That's a man-made lake. And then we enter the famous Gaillard Cut around noon, and you can go back up and go through the Continental Divide and see the monumental task that was accomplished when they finished and built the canal. We're going to see, the first bridge we'll see will be the Centennial Bridge. This is a relatively new bridge that Panama built 6 years ago to span the land in the canal between South America and Central America. And then after we clear the canal around 5 o'clock, we'll go underneath the Bridge of the Americas. This was the first bridge ever built. Before that, they used a ferry system to ferry cars across the canal.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Panama Canal, one of the greatest adventures of modern cruising. My name is Dr. Dave Roberts, or just Dr. Dave, whatever you like to call me. I will be your narrator through our journey through this 8th man-made wonder of the world. Our journey will be a little over 50 miles through the canal itself and through dredged channels on either side of the entrance to the canal. Typical transit times for a high priority ship such as ours is 8 to 10 hours depending on traffic, wind, weather, and waiting. On a ship this size, we'll have anywhere from 3 to 4 pilots. We'll have a senior pilot, we'll have a stern pilot, and one to maintain control of the mules as we go through the locks. The Panama Canal is one of the few places in the world where the captain of a vessel turns over control to the local Panamanian pilot. Orders are given to the pilot to be followed by the captain and crew. Two lanes here at Gatun have 3 chambers that step down to the Atlantic side. Each locked chamber is 1,000 feet long, 110 feet wide, and 43 feet deep. 6 sets of chamber in all at Gatun. The lock walls are 70 feet high, their sides are 45 to 50 feet thick at the bottom and taper to 8 feet at the top. The center wall is 60 feet wide with sheer sides. Each wall contains a gallery for electric installation and a passage for employees and a drainage tunnel. All of the gates fitted to recesses in the lock walls when open. Each chamber holds 6 million cubic feet of water and uses 3 million cubic feet at a filling. In a complete transit of the canal, 52 million gallons of water are lost to the sea with each ship passage. That's 94 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Gatun Lake was formed by a dam across the Chagres River. When it was built, it was the largest artificial lake of its day, about 64 square miles, about that size of Lake Geneva in Switzerland. It holds 83 billion cubic feet of water, and it varies by season and averages about 85 to 87 feet above sea level. One of the problems in adding the third channel or third lane to the existing canal is the need for more water. Deepening and widening the channel will add some more water reserve for lock usage, but that's only part of the answer. The solution also involves adding 1.5 vertical feet to storage on the lake. The lake level will be raised from a nominal height of 85 feet above sea level to 86.5, and that will provide enough water to operate the new lock system and still keep the old locks above water. And if you are a fisherman, the fishing is great in Lake Gatun. The lake is home to at least 5 different species of peacock bass that were accidentally introduced in 1958. They grow to about 2 to 4 pounds, but can get up to 8 pounds. As we exit the Calibre Cut, the town of Gamboa is on our starboard side. The first item of interest is a place you really don't want to visit. It is the prison housing ex-dictator Noriega, off to on our starboard side. Gamboa is the home to the Panama Canal's Authority dredging division and some of the largest pieces of equipment on the canal. Often housed at Gamboa is one of the world's largest floating cranes. Ahead is the Centennial Bridge, the second major road crossing of the Panama Canal, the first being the Bridge of the Americas. There are small service bridges that are built into the lock structures at Miraflores and Gatun locks, but these bridges are only usable when the gates are closed and are mostly for workers to get across. The Centennial Bridge is located about 9 miles north of Bridge of the Americas. The bridge was inaugurated on schedule on August 15, 2004, but it was open to traffic on September 2nd of the following year when the new highways to it were completed. The bridge is a cable stay design with a total span of 1,052 meters. That's 3,451 feet. The main span is 420 meters. That's 1,380 feet, and clears the canal by 80 meters, 262 feet, allowing large vessels to pass below it. The Centennial Bridge was designed to withstand earthquakes, which are frequent in the area. Of note, the West Tower was built 50 meters inland to allow for future widening of the Panama Canal. By now you are really smart or trying to figure out how these things work, these locks and chambers. Well, let me tell you. You can think of the locks as a giant machine that is operated by water flowing downhill. There are no pumps, with just a system of pipes, valves, and gates. The principle used is simple. 3 culverts, which are simply really large pipes, 18 feet in diameter, each large enough to drive a bus through, extend under each of the walls of each lock, one on either side and one in the center. Smaller culverts branch from them. From these, water enters the locked chambers through holes in the floor. The valves controlling the flow of water are electrically operated, as are the gates. Each gate is so well balanced that they open and close, originally using a 40 horsepower electric motor on each side. The locks now use a hydraulically assisted 15 horsepower electric motor, about the same horsepower as a small Vespa scooter. In the middle of the locks, there is a control house, and inside the control house is a model of the locks with every moving feature of the locks duplicated in miniature, including the gate tops. Parts of the models move as the gates themselves open and shut. The operator receives a message from the lockmaster in charge of putting the ship through, turning off or on the water valves as required by turning a small metal handle on the control board. When released, the water flows from a higher to a lower level through the culverts and can fill a chamber in about 15 minutes. To empty a chamber, the upper valves are closed and the lower ones are open. The water in the chamber then flows into the chamber below until the level of the two are the same. When the gates are open, the gates actually recede into the sidewall and the ship passes to the next locked chamber. Each side of the locked gates is 65 feet wide, 7 feet thick, and 70 feet high, except for those at Miraflores, of course. They are built of steel, a framework, bolted together and divided into an upper and a lower chamber, the lower being airtight to make the gate buoyant in the water and take the weight off its hinges. Most ships transiting the locks are under their own power, but are guided by powerful electric locomotives called mules, running on tracks with geared rails in the center. Steel lines are passed from the ship to 2 or even up to 8 of these mules on either side. We are approaching Miraflores locks. In Spanish, Miraflores means look at the flowers. All of the locks on the canal were named for towns that are now at the bottom of the canal. The locks at Miraflores are 2 lanes, 2 chambers each, and will be rising to the level of Miraflores Lake, 54 feet above sea level. On the port side is a broad earthen dike about a half-mile long. On the starboard side is a concrete spillway with 8 gates for release of floodwaters from the lake. The highest gates and the highest lock walls on the canal are those at the lower lock chamber at Miraflores at 82 feet. This is due to the tides on the Pacific, which have an average rise and fall of 12 feet and sometimes a rise of over 20 feet. The single gates here at Miraflores are the heaviest on the whole canal, weighing 662 tons each. The lightest at Gatun are only 350 tons each. The locked chambers, though, have a standard length of 1,000 feet each and a width of 110 feet. As we approach the Balboa Basin, the skyline to starboard, there are 2 hills. The smaller hill, Solsta Hill, was a signal station for pilots of a previous era. The higher hill is Encon Hill, which physically separates Balboa from Panama City. The Port of Balboa is one of the most efficient in the world. If a ship comes in that does not meet the draft restrictions of the canal, in other words, too much cargo on board, some of it can be offloaded onto rail cars. And in the time the ship takes to make the transit, the cargo will be loaded on rail cars, moved to the northern side, and be ready for reloading on the other side at Colon or Cristobal. Ahead is the Bridge of the Americas. It was built between 1959 and 1962 by the United States and cost $20 million. From its completion in 1962 until the opening of the Centennial Bridge in 2004, the Bridge of the Americas was a key part of the Panamanian Highway. The bridge is cantilever designed where the suspended span is tied to an arch. The bridge has a total length of 5,425 feet in 14 spans. The main span measures 1,128 feet. The clearance or air draft under the main span is 205 feet at high tide and 192 feet at low tides. Ships must cross under the bridge when traversing the canal and subject to this height restriction.
The fascinating Panama Canal is a place on many people's wish list to see and to transit. This modern day marvel of engineering, which took 34 years from the initial efforts in 1880 to actually completing in 1914. It's estimated that over 80,000 persons took place in the construction of the canal and that over 30,000 lives were lost in both French and the American efforts. It was the largest and the most complex project of its time. It cost over 350 million US dollars. Sailing through the canal will save us over 7,000 miles. Since the opening in 1914, more than 1 million ships from all over the world have transited the canal, which has a total length of just 48 miles. The Panama Canal is without doubt an incredible engineering feat, but works in a very simple way. There's a series of 3 sets of locks which act like a water staircase. Each of these raises or lowers a ship depending on which way it is that we're sailing through. Aurora will be transiting from the Atlantic side, so at the Gayton Lock she'll be raised by 85 feet. We'll proceed across the Gayton Lake to the Pedro Miguel locks, and Aurora will then be lowered by 31 feet. After we cross the Miraflores Lake and onto the Miraflores locks, we'll be lowered a further 54 feet. We're now passing through the final part of the Galliard Cut, and here we'll encounter the Centennial Bridge. Completed in 2004, it spans a total distance of 3,451 feet, and it was built to supplement the overcrowded Bridge of the Americas. It's supported by 2 towers, each tower over 604 feet in height, and it can accommodate up to 6 lanes of traffic. It sits 262 feet in the air to allow large vessels like Aurora to pass underneath it. So having passed underneath, we're now on the final approach to the Pedro Miguel locks. Pedro Miguel is a single chamber lock where Aurora will be dropped 31 feet to be at the same level as the Miraflores Lake. We'll cruise across the Miraflores Lake, which is a man-made and only a mile in length. This provides the necessary water required for the full operation of the Pedro Miguel and the Miraflores locks. Each of the Panama Canal's locks measurements are the same. The lock chambers are 1,000 feet long and 110 feet wide. Each lock is capable of containing up to 11 million gallons of water. The Panama Canal expansion program will include deepening and widening the Pacific and the Atlantic canals, entrances and building locks even larger with an estimated value of $5.2 billion US. The works will allow an increase in ship size of 25% in length, 51% in berth and 26% in draft, and will be defined as the new Panamax size. The lock we are now approaching is the Miraflores. Miraflores locks has 2 separate chambers, each with its own set of locks. The heaviest and the highest lock gates of the whole system are here in Miraflores because of the extreme variation of the Pacific tides. They're 82 feet in height and weigh an incredible 730 tons. We'll be lowered 35 feet here to continue our journey along the mighty canal, under the Bridge of the Americas and out into the Pacific Ocean. This will complete our transit of this incredible feat of engineering and round off another magical day on board Aurora.